Hi, good afternoon. I'm Ross Ellis, founder and CEO of Stomp Out Bullying. And I'm so happy that you could join us today because I am with a guest that I think is so incredible, Dr. Scott Weiss. He is a licensed physical therapist and board certified athletic trainer in New York. He's also a registered exercise physiologist, strength and conditioning specialist, and human performance coach with over 30 years of experience. His affiliations and certifications are with the U.S. Olympic Committee, the American College of Sports Medicine, and the list goes on and on. He has worked with professional and Olympic athletes, as well as trainer for many A-listers. He's the owner and CEO of Body Zone Human Performance and the owner of Fifth Avenue Physical Therapy. As an author and lecturer, Dr. Weiss has written a myriad of articles and a book called The Customato Story. He has lectured all over the country and has been seen on NBC, CBS, Sirius Satellite, and TED Sports, just to name a few. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you for
Yes,
having me. And now I can say I'm on Stumped Out Bullying,
that's right.
Facebook Live.
That's right. We love Dr. Weiss. He's just, I can't say enough about him. He's just amazing. Um, Dr. Weiss, we have all heard that exercise is paramount for mental health, mood, depression, etc. But what really does exercise do to help mental health?
It's such a good question, Ross. Everybody seems to ask some of the similar questions, but what does it really do? They want to get down to the nitty gritty. And, physiologically, what exercise is doing, it's really releasing chemicals in the body that are all anabolic or growth in nature, that are all positive hormones. We have serotonin, there's epinephrine, which we've heard. They're all these feel good hormones. So that's really one of the first things. Dopamine also gets produced with different forms of exercise. So it's these chemical reactions inside of the body that make us feel good. The other thing, we know motion relieves tension, and that's a fact. So when there is a stressful time, just by doing some sort of motion interrupts the negative neural flow.
Mhm.
And this day and age, people are doing so many things at the same time. I think exercise makes you focus on one thing at a time while you're doing that exercise, and in this day and age, that's really good for our brain.
Right.
That's just the surface.
No, that's really great. What types of exercise are related to mental health?
Well, there are so many. When I think of mental health, I'm thinking, depression, anxiety, trauma,
Right.
even schizophrenia. There's ADHD, PTSD, and all forms of exercise can help these mental issues, whether it's
Right.
stretching and flexibility, whether it's anaerobic or weight training, or whether it's aerobic training, doing something
Mhm.
like a bicycle or a treadmill. All forms of exercise can affect these issues differently, but they're all in a positive effect.
That's great. How long do, not me personally, but all of us, how long do I have to exercise to attain these benefits?
Luckily, it's not that long. With just a couple of minutes of exercise, we see different changes in the brain immediately. There is something called a neurotrophic factor, which actually increases brain cells in minutes, Ross.
Mhm.
So it's not that you have to be doing high intense CrossFit, big weight
Right.
training to get these effects whatsoever. Something as simple as walking 15 minutes twice a day can
Right.
start to benefit, yes, the body in so many different ways. So a lot of people think it has to be this intense one bout, but we know exercise is cumulative. A 10-minute
Right.
minute walk in the morning, a 10-minute walk in the afternoon, a 10-minute
Mhm.
walk at night, all of that is beneficial for the body in so many
Right.
ways.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. How long do the good feelings last from exercise? Like I know
So
the
yeah,
endorphins get going and you feel really good, but how long does it last?
usually we see it increase within the first, so to say, minutes. So while
Mm,
you're exercising, it will increase dramatically within that first 20 minutes, but usually it peaks after that 30-minute mark. And by an hour, it's really depressed. But usually within an hour is really well, you'll feel those feelings the most.
right.
And some research says 1 to 3 hours is really the maximum, but usually you'll get that more of that feeling within that first hour.
Mm. But it wouldn't last, would it last days or weeks?
And that's really why we want to do it again the next day. If
Right.
it lasts weeks or days, you can do one bout of exercise on a Monday and I'll see you next month. It doesn't really work like that. So we want to do something, some form of exercise. And again, it's not about intense exercise, but just, I
Mm,
like to say, move your energy around somehow every day. And that's really where you can get a lot of the benefits.
right. If some people are runners
Mm.
and some people do very fast power walking, what do you think about that? And I mean, I would think that that would help the stress as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, when people go to intense exercise, it kind of brings me back to what I said earlier. When you're doing such an intense form of exercise, power walking might not be, as intense as I'm thinking, but if you're really doing something intensely, you don't have the ability to think of that many other things. That's really the task at hand. And by doing that, these stimulate all those chemicals that we were talking about, which eventually can translate into increased memory, increased focus, attention, better sleep, better metabolism, and just so many,
Uh-huh.
things that are positive attributes to the body. So
Right.
yeah, power walking I think is fine, but I don't think doing the same exercise all the time is advisable. I think cross training is good. So I'm a fan of power walking, but I think that doing the same type of exercise every day not only can get monotonous for us, but it helps your mental state of being no matter what.
Right. Can you talk about the cross training?
Sure. And when we talk about cross training, that's trying to not let the body adapt to one stimulus for too long, because then, as we know, just like taking one medication, you're going to need more. So we'd like to change the exercise up. So if we're doing walking one day, we might want to do
Mm,
stretching the next day. And on the third day, we might want to take a Tai Chi class. And then on the fourth day, we might want to move some resistance. So by doing cross training or different forms of exercise, you balance out the body and get all the attributes of exercise, not just doing one.
right. But you wouldn't do the cross training in one day, correct?
Yeah, that might be too much of an overload. But again, if we're talking about mental health, we don't want to do too much too soon. And I would never want to do, an overload session like that. That would be done over time. For mental health, we're really thinking about doing exercises aerobically for 20 minutes, getting the heart and lungs moving. We're talking about, different forms of circuit training, doing an exercise with resistance, then doing an exercise with aerobic training. There used to be, in many gyms, they would have a track. You would walk a lap, do a machine, walk a lap, do a machine. So there are so many different forms of exercise out there I recommend
Right.
for mental
Right.
health.
When you talk about machines, I mean, most people have access, I would think, to a treadmill, a bicycle,
You'd be
and maybe a
surprised.
track.
You'd be surprised. I try to promote, Ross, and you've always heard me talk about this. You do not need anything to work out and to get a great exercise and for fitness. This stuff was developed to make it just easier for us. But in the early times, there's so much you can do with your own body. Like I mentioned, the Chinese have been doing Tai Chi and Qigong for centuries, of great health giving exercises that help balance, that prevent falls. There's just so many forms out there, which are great.
I know I'm still trying to master that. It's like you want to do it, and then you try it, but you're not steady. And I don't mean like everybody, but I personally. And so I'm trying to figure it out so that I can do it and see what happens with the stress. You know.
Well, I'll tell you the one thing, Ross, that I try to express to patients that are going through any type of form of mental stress. It's consistency. Consistency beats intensity any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Just
Right.
showing up. It doesn't matter if it's going to be a 10-minute walk or a 3-minute walk.
Mhm.
just doing it every day. I can't impress upon people how important that is. It's not about what you do and how hard you do it, it's about doing it all the time. And that's the
Right.
biggest fact I can bring, because by doing it all the time, you develop an emotional resistance and a resilience throughout the day that most people with mental health disorders don't have. One small issue in a day could ruin a whole day.
Yeah.
And this, and by consistency and exercise really gives you this emotional resistance, which is what everybody ultimately needs and is looking for.
Right. How do you get kids, not little kids, I mean, they should do it anyway, but maybe like middle school and up to do it because they want to be gaming or doing something else. And I'm sure I know they are very stressed. Well, how do you get them to do it? What can you get them to do?
It really has to be fun. And it has to be something that they like. So the first step of what we do is really look inside the child. What are they doing? What do they really like to do? What are they gaming about? Well, if they're gaming about a sport, let's play it in real life. So you first have to really get to know the child
Right.
and the ins and outs of them. Then you have kind of like a playing field, no pun intended, to talk about and to
Right.
really figure out what they like. And that's really the first step. And from there, it's really just making it fun and making it something that that's inside of them. And that's really the connection between not only kids, adults as well.
Right. Right. I know you've worked with so many Olympic athletes. And they've got to be stressed out, but they're already doing an exercise of some sort. How do you help them with the stress? What can they do? What do they do?
It's funny you mentioned that, and I almost put a book together called Inside the Five Rings, where I was going to ask 25 gold medalists what they do the night before they won their medal. When they pulled the covers up to their neck at night,
Right.
what
Right.
did they think? How did they deal with that emotional stress? And I did ask many people throughout the 20 years doing it, and I would say everybody deals with stress differently. Some people would listen to music, they would tell me. Some people would eat super healthy. Some people would like to be around other people and like chatter and like friendship and to just disappear in their mind. Other people like to focus and they wanted to be alone. So I saw so many different variations in how people dealt with their own stress. And what I realized is they know themselves the best. And the athlete not only knows their physical body, but should, if they're barking up the right tree, know their mental body, so to
Right.
say. When they understand what they need, they know how to reduce their own stress anxiety. I remember a great time I saw a young gymnast fell on the balance beam, broke her front teeth, was
Ooh.
bleeding.
Ooh.
I ran out as the athletic trainer, and she had the internal dialogue to say to herself, I'm going to get up there. I'm going to finish this. And I don't care that the
Wow.
world's looking at me. I cleaned her up. She got back up there, finished it. And really, it was the way I saw her talk to herself. If you
Mhm.
have an internal dialogue that's like, I can't do this. I don't want to exercise. This sucks. And you're talking to yourself like that, well, that's really what's going to happen. And this young girl taught me that amazing ability to be able to just say, I'm going to do this and I don't care. And I'm just going to finish this and I'll fix my teeth after. Scott, is it
Wow.
that bad? And I told her, I was like, it's not that bad, but I was pretty scared. And she finished, and it was really an amazing feat to learn from a 12-year-old.
Sure. That is amazing. And of course, the last Olympics, we saw a lot of stress. Simone Biles and a lot of the other girls, and I just felt so bad for them because here they are working to something they love, and they were so stressed. So it was incredible. Um,
And with some, and one mistake or one stressful loss of thought can be a catastrophic gymnastics injury.
right.
And she was smart for understanding that, because one little wrong focus could really have ended her
That's right.
career
It was amazing. It was
personally and
amazing.
professionally. So I
Yeah,
think she did the right thing, as well as Naomi, in tennis.
right.
But that's a whole story.
Right. Dr. Weiss, we have someone with a question.
Sure.
Lisa Johnson. Lisa says, I know people who've been in treatment facilities for mental health issues. Exercise was not an option and is not an option in many facilities across the country. Do you have knowledge, or if these are thought, or if there are thought measures or talks in place to provide these activities while getting in-house or outpatient treatment?
There is overwhelming research on how important exercise is. I think it's just how to apply it into these mental treatments facilities. I know a lot of people will go outdoors and enjoy walks and things like that. But I think that within the next, unfortunately, a decade, I wish it was sooner, you'll see every mental health facility have somebody in house that can take care of exercise, group exercise classes. And it's not going to be a consultant basis, it's going to be an in
Right.
house basis. That's what I think is going to be future.
That's great. Thank you for writing in, Lisa. Um,
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Dr. Weiss, can exercise help with PTSD?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, um, I consider it, one of the issues that people deal with, and exercise really has a beautiful way of taking your mind away from the future, away from the past, and bring you into the present. And that's really the angle that helps patients with PTSD.
Right, right. We've heard that exercise can increase brain cells to make your brain more buff. Is this true?
Yeah, so we used to think, and actually, I hate to say, when I was in school, they used to tell us that you had a certain amount of brain cells and they do not regenerate. And whatever you have, you will decrease over time. We know that's not the fact. And again, there are these brain derived neurotrophic factors that we're seeing that gets stimulated by exercise to increase nerve tissue and increase nerve cells. So 100%, you actually get a buff brain, not just a buff body.
Right, right. Um, what about these people that are like exercise freaks? They have to still be stressed out. I wonder if they're doing the right exercises, or because some people just go at it, and they I don't know that they're thinking about the stress they're feeling. What can you say about that?
I mean, exercise can be an addiction like anything else. And, I see people doing whatever they can while they are exercising to not realize that they're exercising, whether it's watching a television program on the screen, whether it's listening to something, talking on the phone, doing everything to not think about exercising. But it is very, very important to be present,
Right.
with the exercise.
Interesting. Since COVID, there's people are either starting to exercise, or they're still. I know here in New York we're up to orange already, so a little bit nervous to be with people, and maybe they don't want to exercise alone. Maybe they want to exercise with a friend or go to a club. What do you recommend?
I still think we have to take precautions here in New York City. There's a little uptick in COVID. So, I mean, I make sure I have my KN95s all over the place. If I go into any facility, I'm protecting myself. And that's really the bottom line at this point. I don't think we can kind of, put the full sail up yet at this point,
Right.
and we have to be cautious. I don't think we should all be in a gym touching the same equipment without people really doing the job to keep things super clean. I think
Right.
that it could be a very bad situation where the uptick can increase tremendously in that situation. But I like that we're starting to move in that direction. And if we're just all of us taking the right precautions from each other and with what we use, there could be some protection here. But it doesn't mean you have to go to a gym to exercise. Getting back to our point before, you can do it on your own. You can go outside, outdoors with other people, take outdoor classes. I see in the parks, the classes are booming, outdoors.
Are they
So I
really?
recommend, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm near Cultures Park, I'm near Central Park, and I see trainers and therapists out
Uh,
there doing all different types of classes.
that is great, and I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in that. Um,
Yeah.
How important is sleep compared to exercise in people with mental health?
It's funny you say that because we say now in our field that sleep is the new exercise.
Really?
People underrate how important good quality sleep is. And the one point that I say, sedation is not sleep. I don't mean taking a sleeping pill and conking out or doing 5 shots and going to bed. I'm
Right.
saying really good restful sleep is so important to have pro hormones, everything growing, regenerating in your body. It's truly where the body gets to plug into its power source and everything starts to regenerate. And if you don't have good sleep and it's restful, it's unrestful, I should say, there's usually be a direct link to increased anxiety and stress throughout that day. So sleep
Oh,
is important.
definitely.
We get into sleep hygiene in our field where trying to go to bed at the same time, trying to wake up at the same time, keeping it cool in your room, making sure that you don't have any coffee or any beverages that will increase caffeine at
Oh,
certain
right.
foods, things like that. So we talk about sleep hygiene, but yes, sleep is the new exercise. It's vitally important to every organ of the body.
Interesting. I need to listen to you. Well, I think we've been around for, we've been talking for about 20 minutes, a little more now. I'm wondering if anyone else has more questions for Dr. Weiss. If you do, here's your opportunity because he's amazing.
Thank you, Ross.
No, it's true.
The one thing I can add is that, whatever mental health issue somebody is going through, exercise is on the top three of the choices that they should choose to really alleviate or abate some of the issues and, sequelae or symptoms that they're having. It's
Right.
just ideal, again, like I mentioned, whether it's regular depression, anxiety, stress, PTSD, schizophrenia, trauma, any one of these mental health disorders, stretching, weight training, Tai Chi, yoga, any of these forms of exercise are so beneficial.
Right.
Of course, I recommend get a full physical clearance from your physician before starting, but
Mhm.
100%, there's burgeoning research each and every day as we speak about how important exercise is for this patient population. I
Right.
can't
And I,
overstate that.
right. And I know from you, stretching, which I hate doing, but it's so important.
Yes, yes,
Um,
it's really longevity in the joints. It's enhanced mobility in the body, and most people will tell me, yeah, Scott, I did 20 minutes on the elliptical. I'm like, yeah, but did you stretch? And really, I got to stretch. Okay, here they'll do a stretch for 10 seconds.
yeah,
You
you
know,
can't.
and people for some reason blow flexibility and stretching off more than anything, and that's movement, that's longevity, and I
Right.
think it's just as important as any other exercise.
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about that because it's reminding me that I must do it. It's
Yes.
really important. Do you have anything
And I
else
try to
to add?
promote really just having a balanced exercise program, Ross. In this population, like I mentioned, one day doing a small class or
Right.
trying to do a couple of exercises. The next day, go for several walks. There are tons of exercise and videos out there online that you can be doing, and with your own body weight. You don't need to join a gym. You don't need any money. And I don't want people to think, that you need that. You don't need to join every fancy club to get the benefits. Not at all.
Right. I actually found something on TikTok because I love looking at the dogs on TikTok. But then this woman came, it was so funny. This woman came up and she was doing not aerobics, but what did she call it? TikTok exercise in a chair. And I
Yep.
found it really interesting. And
Yep.
so I'm going to try that also.
It's great. I used to teach an exercise in a chair. If you remember, there used to be a company called Bally's Jack LaLanne or Bally Total Fitness.
Right.
I was an old-fashioned personal trainer back in the day, and we used to have to do classes in that big aerobics room. And I used to do a chair class for people 60 and above.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Well, I'm
we
not
used
60 and above, but it looked interesting. I've
and I
got
didn't mean it
time.
like,
I've got time.
you know,
But it to me it looked interesting um, because I didn't have to deal with other issues and I could still do that. you
Very
know?
beneficial.
Yeah.
Very beneficial.
And it
Yep.
looks like it's fun.
It is. It
Yeah,
is. And
I
it's
think
if you're doing it online and you can see other people, it makes it almost a camaraderie in a way. So it can
right,
be very fun. Yeah, it can be fun.
right. Yeah, I think for me doing that, it's like it gets me moving more.
Hmm.
And we all have stresses no matter what they are. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try that.
Yeah,
Do
and Ross,
you
like you said, once you find what you like, you got to stick with it. Getting
right,
back to the consistency. Once you find what you like, you go for it.
right, right. Do you have any more wisdom for us because you're so amazing. And if you have any more, we have a little bit of time, a few minutes left.
Sure. Focusing on mental health, it's not that you have to do one form of exercise. I really want to, you know, overstate that because people think you have to be on a treadmill for a half hour and sweating, and that's not what we're talking about here. And I just want to get that point across is that small little bouts of exercise are really
Right,
beneficial. Anything, moving the body, moving the legs around, just making sure moving the shoulders, taking deep breaths, all these things are really beneficial for mental health. The proper breathing exercises and meditation we didn't even get into is ideal for that population. Whether you have any form of mental health, learning how to calm your internal environment is so important. And having the patience to not think externally and go
right.
internally is very tough. It really is tough for a lot
Yeah,
of people. But I would say there's been a big shift within the last decade to people reaching for these modalities to figure out how to relax and relieve stress. And there are so many forms of meditation out there. There's no best one. I want to make sure that people understand that it's really what you find that you like for yourself and that you will do. Because I've luckily studied everything from Tibetan meditation to Indian meditation, Chinese, Japanese forms, and I realized that it all comes down to the right natural breathing patterns.